The alien fleet floated in the cold emptiness of space, stranded on a distant and unknown planet. Their once mighty ships now sat motionless, helpless against the harsh environment. They had been traveling through the galaxy on a vital mission, when an unexpected storm hit, damaging their fleet. Communications were down, and their power supplies were rapidly running out. The alien leaders, once full of confidence and authority, now sat in silence, their faces drawn with worry. The captain of the fleet, Zorath, stood by the window of the command center, staring out into the vast void of space. His eyes were filled with frustration and disbelief. He had never imagined that a simple mission would lead to their fleet being stranded on such a desolate world. The once bustling command center, with its flashing lights and sharp voices of officers, was now eerily quiet. Everyone knew they were in danger. "We are out of supplies," Zorath muttered under his breath, his voice tinged with a hint of desperation. "Our shields are down, and our engines are barely functioning. If we don't get help soon, we will be nothing but a memory." His second-in-command, Trellin, approached him, holding a datapad in his hand. "Captain, the situation is dire. If we cannot repair the ships and restore power, we will never make it out of here. We have no choice but to try sending a distress signal to the nearby systems. Maybe someone will hear us." Zorath turned to look at Trellin, his eyes narrowing. "We've already sent out a signal. No one has responded. There is no one out here who can help us." He paused, his thoughts racing. "We are alone, and I fear that soon we will be forgotten." The silence in the room grew heavier, as if the entire fleet was holding its breath, waiting for a miracle that might never come. The planet they had crash-landed on was a barren, rocky world with a thick atmosphere that blocked most of the light from the distant sun. The surface was cracked and dry, with jagged cliffs and deep craters marking the landscape. The aliens had tried to make their ships more stable, but with each passing day, their hope of escape began to fade. Trellin was not one to give up. "Though we can try again, Captain," he said, looking out at the view of the planet from the command center. "Maybe there is someone out there. Maybe someone will come to our aid." Zorath sighed and rubbed his forehead. He knew Trellin was right, but after so many attempts to reach out to the nearby galaxies, he had lost faith. Still, he couldn't ignore the tiny spark of hope that flickered deep within him. He had to keep trying, even if it seemed pointless. After all, giving up meant certain death for everyone aboard. "We'll send one more signal," Zorath said, his voice firm but tinged with weariness. "Perhaps we will be lucky this time." As he spoke, the ship's communication system hummed to life. A soft beep echoed through the room, signaling that a new transmission had been received. The officers on duty exchanged confused glances. There had been no incoming transmissions in days, and yet, now there was one. Zorath quickly moved to the console and activated the communication system. His heart raced as the screen flickered to life. At first, the image was blurry, static filling the screen, but as the transmission cleared, something remarkable happened. A voice, clear, strong, and unmistakably human, echoed through the command center. "This is Earth's command," the voice said. "We've detected your distress signal. Hold on. Help is on the way." The aliens froze, their eyes wide in disbelief. Earth, the humans. It was impossible. No one had ever expected humanity to be capable of such advanced technology. The thought of humans reaching out to help an alien race seemed absurd. Yet here it was, in front of them, undeniable. Zorath stood motionless, unable to believe his ears. "Is this real?" he whispered to himself. The voice from Earth continued, this time with more clarity. "We are aware of your situation. We understand your fleet is stranded. We're sending a rescue team to assist you." The room was silent for a long moment as the message sunk in. The aliens could hardly comprehend what was happening. Humanity, the species they had underestimated for so long, was offering them help. Zorath turned to his officers, his voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and caution. "Is this a trick? Could it be that humans have some hidden agenda? Why would they help us?" Trellin, always the optimist, spoke up. "Maybe they don't see us as a threat. Maybe they've realized that we're not their enemies, and they want to help us." Zorath stared at the screen, his mind racing. He had always believed that humans were primitive, unable to challenge the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. But this message, this offer of help, changed everything. He looked out the window again, his thoughts clouded by uncertainty. Could they trust the humans? Were they truly coming to help? Or was this all a trick to catch them off guard? "Prepare the fleet," Zorath ordered finally, his voice steady despite the storm of questions in his mind. "We will wait for them, but we will not be naive. If they truly come to our aid, we will show them respect. But if they have other intentions, we will be ready. As the command center hummed with activity, the fleet prepared itself for the unexpected. The future of the alien race hung in the balance, and they were about to find out what humanity's help really meant. Would this be the beginning of a new alliance, or would the humans prove to be yet another danger to their existence? The aliens had no way of knowing what awaited them, but one thing was certain: their fate was about to change forever. The air in the command center was thick with anticipation as the alien fleet's officers gathered around the communication console. Their captain, Zorith, stood at the center of it all, eyes locked onto the screen. The sudden transmission from Earth had shaken them to their core. At first they had assumed it was a malfunction, a glitch in their communication systems. But as the static cleared and the voice became clearer, there was no denying it. Earth had heard their distress signal. Zorith's mind raced. He had always thought of humanity as nothing more than a primitive species, barely capable of leaving their planet, let alone traversing the vastness of space. Yet, here they were, offering help to an alien fleet stranded on a desolate planet millions of light-years away. "This is Earth Command," the voice had said, steady and calm. "We've detected your distress signal. Hold on, help is on the way." The words echoed in Zorith's mind. Help is on the way. The humans were coming, but why? What could they possibly want from them? For as long as the alien fleet had existed, they had been the superior race. They had traveled the galaxy, discovered new worlds, and established alliances with other powerful civilizations. But humanity, they were an enigma, a species that had only recently left their planet. Why would they come to the aid of a race as advanced as theirs? Zorith turned to Trellin, his second-in-command, who had been at his side throughout the mission. The doubt in his eyes mirrored Zorith's own thoughts. "What do you think?" Zorith asked. "Could this be some kind of trap?" Trellin hesitated, his fingers tapping nervously on the console. "It's possible," he said, his voice tinged with caution. "Humans are unpredictable. We've always seen them as an insignificant species, but they could have developed something. We're unaware of something powerful. It's wise to remain cautious." "Captain," Zorith nodded, his thoughts swirling. He didn't want to be the one to lead his fleet into a trap, but he couldn't ignore the chance to escape the desolate planet. They were running out of resources. Soon, their ships would be unable to support them, and yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. He didn't trust the humans. "We've received no response from any other civilizations," Zorith continued, his voice low. "For years, our signals have gone unanswered. And now, out of nowhere, humanity decides to step in." He shook his head, not sure what to believe. The command center was silent for a long moment. The only sounds were the soft hum of the ship's engines and the faint beeping of the consoles. Trellin glanced up from the console and met Zorith's gaze. "Maybe we've misjudged them, Captain," he said quietly. "Maybe they've changed. Maybe they're more capable than we think." Zorith considered this, but the skepticism remained. If they truly wished to help us, why didn't they reach out sooner? Why wait until we are on the brink of extinction? He asked. Before Trellin could respond, the communication system crackled again, and another message appeared on the screen. The Earth Command's voice was back, but this time it sounded more urgent. "Attention, alien fleet," the voice began. "We have detected a hostile force in your vicinity. We are launching a recon mission to assess the situation. Please stand by." A chill ran through the command center. Hostile force. Were they referring to the enemy forces that had chased the fleet to this remote world? Or was there something else lurking nearby? Zorith felt a tight knot form in his stomach. They had been running from their enemies for months, always one step ahead. But now, stranded on this barren planet, they had nowhere left to run. "Hostile force," Zorith repeated, his voice laced with suspicion. "This doesn't feel right. Why would humanity even care about us being attacked? If they were going to help, they would have done it by now." Trellin, sensing his captain's unease, stepped forward. "Captain, I think we should trust them. For now, at least give them a chance. We've tried everything else." Zorith stared at the screen for a moment, his mind torn. He had spent his entire life trusting only his people, only the alliances they had formed over countless years. The idea of trusting a species like humanity, one that had never been a true player in the galactic arena, felt almost wrong, but he couldn't ignore the desperate need for help. If the humans had something to offer, it was their only chance of survival. "Very well," Zorith said at last, his voice steady despite the swirling doubt in his chest. "We'll stand by, but make no mistake. If they have any intention of betraying us, we will be ready." As Zorith turned to leave the command center, Trellin lingered, his eyes still fixed on the communication console. Something about the human transmission seemed off, but he couldn't quite place it. Why had the humans waited until the very last moment to offer help, and what exactly did they mean by a hostile force? Were the humans truly coming to their aid, or was this all part of a larger plan? He didn't know, but one thing was certain. The fate of the alien fleet now rested in the hands of a species they had underestimated for far too long. The command center went quiet once again. The alien fleet, once so sure of itself, now found itself at a crossroads. The arrival of humanity could either mean their salvation or their doom. All they could do now was wait, and pray that the humans were telling the truth. The moment the transmission ended, the command center was filled with an eerie silence. The air felt heavy, as if even the walls of the ship could sense the weight of the unknown. Zoroth paced back and forth, his mind racing with possibilities. Was this a trap, a cleverly devised scheme to lure them into a false sense of security? Or were the humans truly as benevolent as they claimed? Trellan stood by the console, watching his captain closely. Despite his usual calm demeanor, even he was visibly uneasy. The tension was palpable. For centuries, the alien fleet had never known such uncertainty. Every encounter with other species had been calculated, precise, and most importantly under their control. But this was different. Humanity, a species they had long dismissed as insignificant, was suddenly at the center of their survival. It felt ... unnatural. We should prepare, Zoroth finally spoke, breaking the silence. If the humans are coming, we need to be ready. We cannot afford to be caught off guard. Trellan nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He glanced over his shoulder at the large viewport, watching the planet's harsh, barren landscape stretch out beneath them. But prepare for what, Captain? We don't know what they want. We don't know what they're bringing. The quiet hum of the ship's systems filled the space between them. Zoroth didn't have an answer to that question. The truth was, they didn't know what humanity was capable of. They had underestimated them for too long, but now, it was too late to back out. They said they were sending a recon mission, Zoroth said, his voice betraying a hint of doubt. Perhaps that's the first step toward understanding what we're up against. If they're truly here to help, they must be aware of the dangers we face. We'll keep our guard up, but we will also need to cooperate. Trellan's brow furrowed. Cooperate with humans? Captain, I'm not sure I trust them enough to let our guard down. They may be our only hope, but they could also be leading us into a deadly game. Zoroth stared out the viewport, his expression hardening. The fleet was on the brink of destruction. They had nowhere left to turn, and their options were growing slimmer by the day. We have no choice but to cooperate. For now, anyway. We need their help to survive. As the minutes ticked by, the fleet grew more tense. Officers moved between consoles, preparing for any eventuality, while Zoroth and Trellan stood silently, contemplating their next move. The humans had promised help, but the question lingered. Could they be trusted? Suddenly, the communication console beeped, breaking the stillness. Zoroth stepped forward, his pulse quickening as the screen flickered to life. This time there was no static, no interference, just the clear image of a human officer, standing before a large, brightly lit backdrop alien fleet. The human officer said, their voice calm yet commanding, "We are the recon team from Earth. We have arrived in your sector, and we are preparing to land. Please stand by." Zoroth exchanged a glance with The human officer's expression was serious, but there was no sign of deception. They were here, they were real, and now, humanity's true intentions would be revealed. We'll take them at their word, Zoroth said, his voice low but firm. Prepare the fleet for their arrival. As the human recon team's ship descended toward the alien fleet, the command center grew even quieter. Every officer, every member of the crew, seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the inevitable meeting. What would it be like to face humanity? What would they say when they landed on the surface? Were they truly there to help? Or were they preparing for something else entirely? The ship finally touched down, sending a soft tremor through the ground. The air seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. A moment later, the heavy doors of the alien ship slowly opened, and a group of human soldiers, clad in their sleek, futuristic suits, stepped onto the planet's barren surface. The sunless sky cast an eerie glow on their helmets, making them look almost otherworldly. Zoroth and Trellan watched from the command center as the humans made their way across the rocky terrain toward the fleet. The tension in the air was almost suffocating. Zoroth spoke quietly, more to himself than to Trellan. What do they want from us? Why now? Why us? Trellan didn't respond at first, his gaze fixed on the humans as they drew closer. Finally he spoke. Perhaps they see something in us. Maybe they've realized we're not so different after all. Zorath shook his head, a bitter smile curling on his lips. I hope you're right, but until I see proof, I'll remain cautious. But human soldiers reached the fleet's command center, and Zorath stepped forward to meet them. His mind was still racing, his thoughts scattered, but his resolve was firm. The moment had come. He would face the humans, and he would learn the truth. The humans stood in a line, their helmets reflecting the cold, alien landscape. They didn't speak at first, simply waiting for Zorath to make the first move. The silence between them was heavy with the weight of both uncertainty and possibility. Finally, Zorath spoke, his voice steady. You've made it. We were not sure if you would. The human officer in the front of the group removed their helmet, revealing a young woman, with sharp features and an intensity in her eyes. We made it because we are determined to help. Your fleet's survival matters to us. Zorath studied her for a moment, trying to decipher the sincerity in her words. And why would it matter to you? Why help us, when you have no reason to? The woman's expression softened slightly, but there was no hesitation in her voice. Because we believe in a future where all species can live and thrive together. No one should be left stranded. No one should face extinction alone. Zorath's heart skipped a beat. The words were simple, yet something about them struck him deeply. Could it be that humanity wasn't just offering help out of kindness? Was there something greater at play here? As the two sides stood there, facing each other on the barren surface of the planet, it became clear, this was just the beginning. The alliance between humanity and the alien fleet would define the future and, perhaps, in time, reshape the galaxy itself. The silence between the two groups stretched on, as if the very air had frozen in anticipation. Zorath stood still, his gaze fixed on the human officer before him, the words she had spoken still echoing in his mind. A future where all species can live and thrive together. Her words seemed too simple, too idealistic, given the complexities of the galaxy. Could they really mean it? Could humanity, a race so young and still so raw, truly be offering something beyond survival, something more, meaningful? Trelon, standing behind Zorath, shifted uneasily on his feet. He too was deep in thought, trying to make sense of this unexpected encounter. The humans had made no aggressive moves. They had not demanded anything in return, but there was still so much they did not understand about these beings from Earth. How could they trust them? Zorath broke the silence, his voice steady but tinged with caution. You say your species believes in a future of cooperation, but how can we believe in this future when we know nothing about you? Why offer help to a fleet you've never met? You are not even part of the galactic alliances. You are strangers to us. The human officer, who had introduced herself as Captain Lila, looked directly at him with unwavering intensity. Her eyes shone with a calm confidence that seemed to challenge everything Zorath had ever believed. Because we've learned from our mistakes. Humanity has been isolated for so long, too focused on our own survival to see the bigger picture. We've made enemies, yes, but we've also made friends, some we never expected to find. Zorath was taken aback by her response. It wasn't what he had expected. It wasn't the typical bravado that one might expect from an alien conqueror, but there was something else in her tone of sincerity he couldn't ignore. Still, trust didn't come easily. The galaxy had taught him that much. Trelon, unable to hold back his skepticism, spoke up. And what do you want from us? You claim to offer aid, but every offer has a price. There's no such thing as a free favor in the galaxy. What's the catch? Lila's expression didn't change. She was unfazed by the question. There's no catch, no hidden agenda. We're here because it's the right thing to do. We're here because your survival is important to us. Nothing more, nothing less. Zorath's eyes narrowed. He studied the human officer, looking for any sign of deceit, but there was none. Her body language was open, her tone resolute. He couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to him with such honesty. It felt strange. He wasn't used to this level of transparency from other species. They always had ulterior motives, always had something to gain. Why would the humans be any different? You've been stranded on this planet for far too long, Lila continued, her gaze sweeping across the fleet. We've been tracking your signals, and we know how desperate your situation is. We're not here to exploit you. We're here to help you rebuild. We have technology, resources, and expertise that could restore your fleet and give you the chance to escape this place and find your way home. The words hit Zorath harder than he anticipated. The thought of rebuilding, of being free from the relentless pull of isolation, was almost too much to process. It wasn't just a chance at survival, it was a chance to live, to go beyond mere existence. The alien fleet had been on the brink of extinction for so long. Could they really afford to pass up this opportunity? Zorath looked around at his crew, their faces filled with uncertainty. There was fear in their eyes, fear of the unknown, fear of trusting these humans. But there was also something else. Hope. A flicker of hope that had been buried beneath layers of desperation. It was that hope that had kept them alive so far, and now here was humanity offering them a lifeline. He turned back to Captain Lila, his voice quieter now. "If we accept your help, what do you want in return?" Lila smiled, but it wasn't a smile of cunning or manipulation. It was a smile of understanding, of compassion. "We're not asking for anything. This isn't about gaining anything from you. It's about offering the opportunity to move forward, together. If you want to rebuild, if you want to stand side by side with us, that's all we ask." For the first time in what felt like ages, Zorath felt a surge of something unfamiliar, a sense of possibility. The galaxy had always been a place of struggle, of survival, where power and dominance were the only currencies that mattered. But here, with humanity, things seemed different. The galaxy could be more than just a series of conquests and alliances. It could be a place of cooperation, of mutual respect. "We'll need to assess your technology," Zorath said, his voice firm but not dismissive. "If we are to trust you, we must first understand what you can offer. Our fleet systems are highly complex. We cannot afford to risk our survival on unproven methods." Lila nodded without hesitation. "Of course. We'll work with your engineers. We'll show you everything we can offer. Our technology is at your disposal." Zorath paused, contemplating the path before him. Trust had always been earned, never given freely. He had been trained to view every encounter with caution, to question every offer, every alliance. But there was something about this moment that felt different. The humans had come with no demands, no hidden agendas. They had come to offer help, and they had done so without hesitation. Perhaps it was time to step into the unknown. "Very well," Zorath said at last. "We will begin the assessment. But know this, we are not easily swayed. If we find any treachery, we will not hesitate to act." Lila gave a small nod, her expression resolute. "I understand, Captain. We'll do everything we can to earn your trust." As Zorath turned to face his fleet, he felt the weight of the decision settle in. This was more than just a chance for survival. It was a moment that could change everything, change the way they viewed not just humanity, but the galaxy itself. It was the beginning of something new, something that had the potential to reshape their entire existence. But the journey was just beginning, and whether they could truly trust humanity or if they were walking into another trap, only time would tell. The following days were filled with activity and tension. Zorath had ordered his fleet to prepare for the incoming help from humanity. But the more time he spent interacting with the humans, the more he questioned the true nature of their intentions. They had shown up with an offer to rebuild, to repair their ships, and to help the alien fleet escape their desolate prison of a planet. But Zorath couldn't shake the feeling that something was being left unsaid, as the humans worked side by side with the alien engineers, assisting in the repairs and offering their advanced technology. The once closed-off atmosphere of the fleet began to shift. There was a sense of hope, of possibility, something the fleet hadn't felt in ages. But even as the repairs began to show positive results, Zorath remained vigilant, his eyes scanning the humans as they worked, searching for any sign of deceit. It was during one of these moments, when the human engineers were examining the engines of Zorath's flagship, that the unexpected happened. The transmission from Earth Command came again, this time with a much more urgent tone. "Captain Zorath," the voice of Earth Command crackled over the communication line. "We've detected a fleet of hostile ships approaching your position, heading your way at full speed. We suggest you prepare for immediate defense. We'll provide additional support if needed, but you'll have to act fast." The words hit Zorath like a punch to the gut. Hostile ships. The very threat they had been fleeing from had finally caught up with them. He had feared this moment, and now it was here. His fleet was still in the process of being repaired, and the humans' help, though vital, wasn't enough to guarantee their survival against an attack of this magnitude. Trellin, standing nearby, looked at Zorath with wide eyes. "Captain, we cannot defend ourselves in our current state. The fleet is not ready for battle." Zorath's gaze hardened. "We will fight. We have no choice. Our survival depends on it." He turned to face the human officer who had been leading the team of engineers. Lila, she was standing just outside the doorway, her expression unreadable as she listened to the conversation. Zorath felt a flicker of frustration rise within him. Here they were, ready to trust these humans, and now, just as they had started to believe they might have found an ally, this new threat appeared. Would the humans even stand with them when The battle came. Lila stepped forward, her voice calm but full of authority. Captain Zorath, we knew this might happen. We're not just here to help you survive. We're here to fight alongside you, if you'll allow it. Zorath stared at her, unsure of what to make of her words. The humans had no reason to put themselves in danger for the alien fleet. What did they gain from this? Fight with us, he asked, disbelief in his voice. Why would you risk your own fleet? You have nothing to gain by involving yourselves in this battle. Lila's eyes remained steady. You've misunderstood us, Captain. We believe in alliances, in unity, and we believe that every life has value. If we want to move forward as a species, we have to work together. Your people are no different. If we fight as equals, not as conquerors, not as allies by circumstance, but as partners. The simplicity of her words caught Zorath off guard. For so long the galaxy had been a place of power struggles, of competition. Alliances were forged out of necessity, out of the need for survival. Yet here, in front of him, was a species that believed in something different, cooperation for the sake of mutual survival. It was a foreign concept to him, and yet, he couldn't help but feel that it was what his fleet needed. Then we will fight together, Zorath finally said, his voice resolute. But I will not place the lives of your people in danger without your full consent. You will not be forced into this. Lila nodded, her expression softening. We've already made our choice, Captain. Now, let's make sure we're ready when the battle comes. The following hours were a whirlwind of preparation. The alien fleet, once sluggish and disorganized, began to come to life as their engineers worked tirelessly, assisted by the humans, to restore their ships to working order. The human fleet, while small, was fast and efficient, with sleek ships, designed for both speed and firepower. They quickly moved into position alongside the alien ships. Preparing for whatever might come, Zorath stood at the helm of his flagship, looking out at the fleet. The repaired ships glistened under the distant stars, their once damaged surfaces now reinforced and ready for battle. Despite the uncertainty that lingered in the back of his mind, Zorath couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. His fleet, though battered, was still alive, still fighting. Captain Trellan said, stepping up beside him. We're ready. Zorath nodded, his gaze never leaving the horizon. The hostile fleet was approaching fast. It was only a matter of time before they made their move. The humans had provided them with the means to defend themselves, but the outcome of this battle was still uncertain. I know, Zorath said quietly, but we fight together for survival, for a future. The sound of incoming enemy ships echoed through the comms, followed by a series of alerts. Zorath's heart pounded in his chest as he prepared for the battle that was about to unfold. It would not be easy. The odds were stacked against them, and yet, for the first time in what felt like forever, Zorath felt a sense of camaraderie, a sense of unity with the humans standing beside him. The first shots rang out, breaking the stillness of space. Explosions lit up the sky as the battle began. Zorath's fleet, bolstered by humanity's unexpected alliance, held their ground, their weapons now synchronized with the precision of the humans' technology. The battle was brutal, but the alien fleet was holding its own. Humanity's firepower was more than enough to push the hostile ships back, their ships maneuvering with speed and agility. Zorath could see the humans' tactics in action. Their attacks were calculated, their ships darting in and out of the fray with ease. But the aliens were no slouches themselves. They fought with everything they had, each ship a testament to the resilience of their species. As the battle raged on, Zorath couldn't help but think that this was more than just a fight for survival. It was a fight for something bigger, a fight for unity, for a chance to prove that different species could stand together, that they could share a common goal, no matter their differences. And in that moment, as he watched the enemy forces retreat, Zorath realized that perhaps this was the beginning of something new, something he had never thought possible, a future built not on dominance, but on partnership. The battle had raged on for hours, but as the last of the hostile ships retreated into the dark void of space, Zorath could finally allow himself a moment of relief. The alien fleet had been pushed to its limits, but with humanity's help, they had stood their ground and emerged victorious. The tension that had gripped the fleet for so long began to dissipate, replaced with a cautious sense of triumph. But despite the victory, Zorath knew that this was only a temporary respite. The real test was yet to come. As the alien ships regrouped and began their repairs, Zorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring out at the wreckage of the battle. The once desolate planet now felt strangely alive, its surface dotted with the remains of the enemy fleet, as well as the scattered debris of the alien ships. Humanity's fleet had proven itself in battle, But now the question loomed. Could they be trusted with more than just a fight? Leela's voice crackled over the communication system, breaking Zoroth's thoughts. Captain, it's time we discuss the next steps. We can't afford to remain in this sector for much longer. We need to decide what happens now. Zoroth turned to Trellin, who was still monitoring the situation. The second-in-command's expression was grim, his fingers moving rapidly across the console as he analyzed the fleet's systems. I know, Captain, but there's something off about this entire situation. We've barely had time to process the betrayal of our enemies, and now we're supposed to trust the humans. It feels like we're trading one threat for another. Zoroth nodded slowly. His mind was torn between gratitude for humanity's support and the gnawing suspicion that lingered at the back of his thoughts. There had been no signs of deceit during the battle, but was this truly the beginning of an alliance, or was humanity simply using them as a pawn in their own game? Lila's voice echoed again, more insistent this time. Captain, we need your answer. The humans aren't the only force in the galaxy that we have to worry about. We need to discuss how to move forward together. Zoroth took a deep breath and turned to face Trellin, his resolve hardening. Prepare the fleet. We're leaving this sector. If humanity is truly on our side, then we will follow them. But if we're being led into a trap, then we need to be ready to fight again. Trellin looked as if he wanted to argue, but after a long moment, he simply nodded. Understood, Captain. As Zoroth walked through the command center, he couldn't help but reflect on how far the alien fleet had come. Once so powerful, they had fallen to the brink of extinction, stranded and alone on a barren world. But now, with humanity's unexpected help, they had the chance to rebuild, to escape the grip of despair. Yet, even as the fleet prepared for departure, there was something in the pit of Zoroth's stomach that refused to settle. He could feel the eyes of the crew on him, waiting for his decision. The trust between the two species, while growing, was still fragile. Zoroth knew that, for the alliance to work, he would have to put aside centuries of suspicion and embrace the possibility of something new, a future where cooperation, rather than conquest, might define their existence. Lila arrived at the command center just as the alien fleet prepared to depart. She was alone this time, her usual team of engineers nowhere in sight. She approached Zoroth with a steady gaze, her eyes betraying a sense of urgency, but also something softer concern perhaps. She wasn't just there as an officer, but as someone who had shared in the victory of the previous hours, someone who had fought beside them. Zoroth met her gaze, his expression hard to read. We're leaving this sector. The fleet is ready to move. Lila nodded, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, relief, perhaps, or something else. I'm glad. I know this hasn't been easy for you, Captain, for all of you, but we did what we had to do. Zoroth's lips tightened. We didn't win this battle alone. You stood with us. But that doesn't mean we trust you completely. We don't trust anyone completely. Leela's gaze didn't waver. I understand, but the humans didn't fight to earn your trust. We fought because we believe in a future that's better than war. We're not asking you to believe in us just yet, but I hope you will, in time. Her words lingered in the air, and for a moment, Zoroth didn't know how to respond. The truth was, he wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that this wasn't just another manipulation, that this wasn't another instance where they would be left to fight for themselves once the humans had gotten what they wanted. But deep down he knew that this was more than just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the future of their species. For the first time in his life, Zoroth had to confront the possibility that cooperation might be the only way forward. The fleet began to move, engines humming as the ships slowly lifted from the planet's surface. Zoroth watched from the command center as they ascended. The human ships nestled between the alien vessels, their sleek forms a striking contrast to the older, battered alien ships. For a brief moment it felt as though they were moving together, not as allies by necessity, but as true partners. Zoroth allowed himself a moment to reflect. They were leaving the place that had once been their prison. They were leaving the memories of their past behind, uncertain of what awaited them. But as the ships sailed into the depths of space, he felt a small flicker of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the beginning of something new. Something more than just survival. Something that had the potential to change the galaxy itself. As the fleet entered hyperspace, Zoroth looked out across the stars. There was still so much unknown, so much that could go wrong. But for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to believe in the possibility of a future where survival didn't mean sacrificing everything that made them who they were. And as the stars blurred around them, the alien fleet moved forward, for now with humanity. But Zoroth knew that the real test was only just beginning. Would they truly find a way to work together, or would their fragile alliance shatter under the weight of the galaxy's harsh realities? Only time would tell. The galaxy stretched before them, a vast, starry expanse of the unknown. Zorath stood at the helm of his flagship, watching the void ahead as the alien fleet, now fully repaired and reinforced by humanity's technology, moved forward. The fleet's engines hummed steadily, its once silent corridors now bustling with life and activity. A sense of purpose filled the air, a feeling that had been absent for so long. They had escaped the barren planet, leaving behind the dust and despair that had once threatened to swallow them whole. But as the fleet ventured deeper into space, the uncertainty that lingered in Zorath's chest was harder to shake. Even though they had fought and won together, even though they had made the impossible happen, he couldn't ignore the truth that still gnawed at him. They had taken a leap of faith by trusting humanity, but what if it wasn't enough? The journey ahead would take them through uncharted sectors of the galaxy, areas where no alien species had ventured before. For years the alien fleet had been running, fleeing from their enemies and seeking refuge in the furthest reaches of space. But now, with humanity by their side, they had a chance to build something more, a future, perhaps where they could, once again, stand strong. But first, they had to survive the dangers that lay ahead. Zorath's thoughts were interrupted by the sudden flash of a new transmission on the communication screen. His heart skipped a beat as he recognized the call. Signal from the human fleet. Lila, her image appeared on the screen, her expression serious but resolute. "Captain Zorath," she began, her voice calm, "we've reached a point in our journey where we'll need to make some tough decisions. There are several hostile factions in this region. We've been monitoring their movements, and it seems we're heading directly into their territory." Zorath straightened, his fingers gripping the console as his mind raced. "How many?" he asked, his voice steady, though his heart pounded in his chest. "And are they aware of our presence?" Lila's gaze flickered briefly to her own console, before meeting his eyes. "We've detected 3 factions that are currently moving toward our position. The first is a mercenary fleet, known for their ruthlessness and greed. The second is a more dangerous force, an aggressive alien race that has conquered multiple systems. The third—" Her voice trailed off for a moment, before she continued. "The third is an unknown faction. We've never encountered them before." Zorath's jaw clenched as he processed the information. Their journey, which had once seemed like a new beginning, was quickly turning into a race for survival. The mercenary fleet could be dealt with, they were nothing more than hired guns. The aggressive alien race, however, was a different story. They had a reputation for wiping out entire species in their quest for dominance, and the unknown faction, that was the wild card, the variable that Zorath couldn't predict. "We cannot afford to take any chances," Zorath said, his voice firm. "What do we know about this unknown faction? Can we attempt to make contact, or do we prepare for battle?" Lila's expression hardened. "We've tried to make contact, but they're not responding to our hails. We don't know their intentions, but we have reason to believe they are hostile." Zorath nodded, feeling the weight of the decision on his shoulders. This was it. They had to be ready for anything. They had come so far, and now, they were on the brink of facing a threat unlike any they had ever encountered. The decision was clear: prepare for battle, but do so with caution. "Set the fleet on high alert," Zorath ordered. "We'll keep our distance from these factions, but if they engage us, we fight back. I don't want to take any risks. I won't let this fleet fall apart again." Lila's nod was quick, her face set with determination. "Understood, Captain. We'll work together to ensure the fleet's safety. We'll hold off the mercenaries and keep the other factions at bay. But we may need more reinforcements too. Ensure our survival." Zorath hesitated, the thought of more battles weighing on him. "Reinforcements," he murmured. "Where will we get them? The humans may have helped us once, but we cannot rely on them forever. We must find our own strength." Lila's voice softened, though there was still a steely edge to it. "Captain, we may be on our own for now, but you're not alone in this. Humanity is offering more than just weapons and ships. We're offering our knowledge, our experience. Together, we can learn and adapt. The key to survival isn't just about firepower, it's about how we fight." Zorath met her gaze, searching for any hint of doubt in her eyes. But there was none. For the first time, he saw a reflection of the same determination that had driven his own people for centuries. Humanity, a species once seen as fragile and unworthy of trust, was standing beside them not as subordinates, not as allies by chance, but as equals, willing to fight for the same future. He felt a flicker of something within him, a spark of hope that, for the first time, felt real. "Very well," he said, his voice carrying the weight of command. "We'll face whatever comes together. We will fight, not just for survival, but for a future. For the first time, we have a chance to rebuild, and I won't let that slip away. The fleet continued on its course, moving steadily through the stars, the unknown factions looming on the horizon. The tension was thick, but Zorath could feel a shift, a change in the air. This wasn't just another battle for survival. This was something bigger. It was the beginning of a new chapter in the history of their species, a chapter where they were no longer isolated, no longer trapped in the endless cycle of survival. Together with humanity, they would face the challenges of the galaxy, and they would prove that cooperation, not dominance, was the key to a better future. Zoroth didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like they might actually have a chance. The stars stretched out before them, and the alien fleet moved forward, united with humanity. The unknown factions waited. Ahead, their intentions still a mystery, but Zoroth knew one thing for sure: whatever happened, they would face it together, and that, in itself, was the greatest weapon they could have.